Hi, I'm Neha Matthews, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. The Ministry of Home Affairs is currently drafting the rules for the Citizenship Amendment Act, and new information has emerged about what sort of documents would be required to prove citizenship. Diptiman Tiwari, who covers the Home Ministry, joins us to explain.
Diptiman, so the Ministry of Home Affairs has been drafting rules for the CAA. Is there anything new we've learned over the past 2 days?
Well, the rules are in sort of final stages of framing now. And some of the things which are being discussed at the moment include that those who apply for a citizenship under CAA will have to prove that first they came before the cutoff date. The cutoff date is December 31st, 2014. Only those illegal immigrants who have come to India before this date can apply for citizenship under the amended Citizenship Act. So one is that. Two, because the law says that people only from 6 religions and 3 countries, 6 religions being Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, Parsis, Jains, and Buddhists, and the 3 countries being Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. So illegal immigrants only from these countries are going to be allowed to seek citizenship. So they will have to prove that they came from these 3 countries first. And they will have to prove that they belong to a certain religion which is mentioned in the Act. Now, some documents which are being thought about to be included under the rules, basically any government document where the applicant has earlier declared that he is a Hindu, Sikh, Christian, Parsi, Jain, Buddhist, declared his faith, declared his religion before December 31st, 2014, that he was a Hindu, that he came before December 31st, 2014. He has some document in India which says that he is a Hindu, Christian, Parsi, and the rest. And this document could be if that person got his children enrolled in a school, so must have declared his religion. So that document could be used. If that person ended up making Aadhaar or some ration card or any other government document, MTNL connection or anything, which he can show that he was in possession of before December 31st, 2014, which would show that he actually came and was in the country before that date, and any document where he's declared his faith. The tricky part is going to be how people are going to declare or what kind of document people are going to produce for proving that they came from these 3 countries, because a large number of these people came without travel documents. So people who've come without travel documents, it can be very difficult for them to prove unless they have that country's passport with them or any other document. Like when they were leaving Pakistan or Bangladesh or Afghanistan, they carried some document from there which shows that they were residents of Afghanistan or Pakistan or Bangladesh. Without that, it could be difficult for such applicants to prove. But I'm sure the government will work out some way for people who do not have any document to prove that they came from these countries, because they may have come in circumstances where they may not have been able to carry or not thought it fit to carry travel documents or any other such document which proves that they came from those countries. Because a lot of people also do not want to be found out that before this law came, many people would not be wanting to be found out that they belong to such countries. It is also a possibility that such people may have destroyed such documents if they had. So that government will have to work out as to how it will prove that such people came from these countries.
Is there going to be any evidence to show that they are persecuted minorities as well? Because this is what we've heard in speeches.
That is not being included in the rules. And let's also remember that even in the Act, religious persecution is only mentioned in the objects of the law. It is not part of the statute. There is no provision mentioning religious persecution. So it is only in the objects of the Act that people from these communities are being religiously persecuted in these 3 countries. And so this Act has been brought about. So it is going to be presumption that the government is likely to frame rules that it is going to be presumed that if you are a member of these 6 communities and coming from these 3 countries, then you have faced religious persecution. Remember, the Act also says religiously persecuted or facing fear of religious persecution. Now, fear of religious persecution can be even more difficult to prove if you make people prove that. So that is largely going to be on presumption.
And we also had the state of Assam asking for certain rules when it comes to the CAA. Has that been given to them?
Assam was the only state which sent certain suggestions as far as rules are concerned. And it must be remembered that the situation in Assam is very different from the rest of the country. While in the rest of the country, we are seeing anxiety among largely Muslim community or the liberal class in the urban centers. In Assam, there is anxiety everywhere. Normal Assamese people are protesting against CAA because they fear that CAA will allow people to settle down in Assam. Will go against the Assam Accord, which was basically signed largely to protect the cultural identity of Assamese people, the indigenous Assamese people. So they fear that this will again have an impact on the demography and will threaten the cultural identity of local people. So that is an all-pervasive sentiment in Assam, and the government has been trying to assuage this sentiment first by leaving aside all the 6 scheduled areas of Assam from the purview of the Act. And now Assam has sent some suggestions as far as rules are concerned, saying that the period to apply for citizenship under CAA should not be kept open-ended. Like it should not be that even 15 years from now, you come and you make an application saying that I came before 2014 and now grant me citizenship. They've sent a suggestion saying that it should be restricted to 3 months from the date of notification of the rules. So if tomorrow rules are notified or on 1st of February rules are notified, then from there, 3 months. But the government is still deciding whether it should be 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. But it has been learnt, it is understood that the government is arriving at a time period. How short or long that time period is going to be is not yet known. It's still being discussed.
A new US report to the National Crime Records Bureau has thrown up some frightening numbers. About 25,000 child pornography cases, or as it is called, child sexual abuse material, has been uploaded on social media in India in the last 5 months. Now, this number throws a light on what the prevalence of this problem might be and the need to tackle it more effectively. Mumbai correspondent Muhammad Thawar, who covers crime, joins us over call to explain how this group, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, tracked these cases and the action India is taking.
So basically what happens in India, the law enforcement agencies don't specifically go looking out for such content online. Say if a person comes to know that, okay, there is this content there online, you go and complain to them, they will take action. So in that context, there was no collection of data from it was just dependent on someone seeing this and alerting them. Now, what has happened now and why this is unique is in the US, this body NCMEC, they have been working to ensure that any kind of missing children or sexual exploitation of children, all of that they take action against it. What they had been doing is the organization was set up in such a way that one, people could call up and tell them that, it was called a tip line where people can call and tell them that, okay, there is pornographic data here. They would collate it. There could be internet service providers. And what a copier told me is also like a lot of places use software. Now, what this software does is that, it scans the internet, and if there is anything, it brings to their notice. So basically, this organization NECMEC, they hand over data to law enforcement agencies, and the data that they share is very specific. So it will have a copy of it will have a screen grab of the video. It will have the IP address of the computer. So it has all that a law enforcement agency would need. They would just need to check whether the data is right, and then it becomes an offense, and then they can just track down that person using the IP address. So in that context, you are getting a lot of data now from the US, where data has been uploaded from India.
And what has this report said about cases in India? Has it been given us state-wise data?
So basically, this will be pornographic content that has been uploaded from any IP address across the country. Now, based on the cases that they have sent back, what has come to light is that at least in the past 5 to 6 months, there have been at least 25,000 such cases reported, wherein 25,000 cases where suspected pornographic material was uploaded from India. And amongst these, like Delhi is at the top with the most number of cases. And the top 5 states, like there's Delhi, there's Maharashtra, UP, and West Bengal and Gujarat. So these are the places which are also geographically larger than the other areas. So what has emerged is that these are the areas from where there's a maximum number of such cases. But also, see, it may also happen that out of 100 cases that are sent to them, it may happen that in 5 cases or in 10 cases, it may not actually be a pornographic thing, because this is a system generated thing. So that's where the law enforcement agencies will come in, wherein they see something and then they decide that, okay, no, this is pornographic content and we will register an offense. And so, it's important because these 25,000 cases that have been sent now, of these, maybe if someone would have reported 1,000 cases, the others would have gone scot-free. So in that context, it just shows you the importance when you see the scale of the numbers. Maybe of these 25,000, even if you take out 10,000, that, okay, maybe system generated thing was wrong. But even if you're talking about 15,000 cases, I mean, that's a huge number.
And in that way, I want to ask you, how has the NCRB responded to this? Is there going to be action taken on the report?
Yeah, so basically, they have actually made things quite easy for the NCRB, because, see, for any offense to be registered, one, you need the person against whom the offense has to be registered, and you need some evidence. Here, they're already sending you an evidence. They're telling you that, this IP address had uploaded this video with a grab of the video. So if you see that, you have the evidence that, okay, there's a crime that's committed, and you have the IP address based on which you can track down the house. Now, what the NCRB, which is a nodal agency, what that is doing is it's taking this data, it's dividing it state-wise, and then it is sending details in a CV to all these states with the geotag to the state police. The state police will then, send it to different districts, etc. Then eventually the cop there will take a call whether this evidence is good enough or not. Like, for example, in Bede, they've registered 3 offenses. In Ahmednagar, they've registered 4 offenses. And also they need to be very careful about this, because the moment a person would come to know that, okay, there's such a thing that is happening, there is a fear that they would try to wipe off the evidence from their hard disk.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. In terms of worldwide, we know child pornography cases are notoriously very hard to tackle. What sort of challenges are the police sort of anticipating now that they have this report?
Yeah, so see, the first thing is that one, the most important thing for them was to keep this under a wrap for the longest time. Like, now that they've started registering FIRs, because the moment a person would come to know that, such a thing is happening, the first thing that person would do is just wipe evidence off the hard disk, which would then make it difficult for the cops. So the most important thing was to keep it under wraps. The second thing also is that, see, prior to this, such an exercise has never taken place. So they also had to figure out, how do we go about this? Do we at a central level do it? Do we send it to the state police? So they had to actually prepare something, an SOP, that what are the steps that are to be followed. And after they had clarity on all of that, could they go ahead? So it took them a lot of time to even figure out about, okay, here is the data, and what do we do about it? And another thing that is there is, last year, the POCSO Act, which is against offenders of sexual crimes against children, they had amended that to include, like, when it came to the section of pornography, to include not only videos, but, like photographs, like cartoon characters, etc. So they had also widened the scope of that, so which kind of comes in handy now when the cops are registering FIRs.
All of these cases coming out, 25,000, it's no small number. Do you think this report kind of adds importance to how child pornography should be tackled in India?
The thing is that even the government agencies would not have anticipated the high numbers that they have got, like 25,000 cases. Even if you remove like 5,000 or 10,000, even then 15,000 cases where child pornography is being uploaded is something that I think they would not have anticipated the magnitude of that. So now that it has happened and you have the real numbers, it would also help when it comes to framing laws, if you need more stringent laws here, or even when it comes to policy matters. So I think in that context, what this report does is it tells you that there is a problem, and it is at a scale that is high enough for it to be taken seriously.
India's move to notify the Citizenship Amendment Act may be leading us to losing diplomatic friends across the world. The European Parliament has moved resolutions slamming CAA, and the foreign press continues to be critical of the act. But how is this actually panning out in terms of diplomatic relations? And do these resolutions even have authority? Shubhajit Roy, who covers foreign affairs for the Indian Express, joins me to explain.
So, Shubhajit, can you tell us about the European Parliament? There are about 5 resolutions that were moved and have now been combined into a joint resolution, and another that subtly criticizes the CAA. So could you tell us about the groups that were involved and what the resolutions tackle?
Yeah, so earlier there were five political groups in the European Parliament, which were of different ideologies from center right to a far left. The entire spectrum of political groups had moved these resolutions criticizing Indian government's Citizenship Amendment Act. But now those five political groups have merged their text, and there is now a joint resolution which they have moved. Now, this particular resolution says that NRC exacerbates climate of xenophobia, and CAA is extremely discriminatory in nature and dangerously divisive. And it also talks about the violence in UP. It talks about the arrest of activists like Sadaf Jafar and Akhil Gogoi. It talks about the increasing nationalism, which has resulted in religious intolerance and discrimination against Muslims, and also the protests that have broken out in India, and particularly in university campuses. So, all in all, it essentially talks about the entire situation that has come up in the last a month and a half in the wake of passage of the CAA in the Indian Parliament. And the European Parliament is now expected to take it up on Wednesday, debate it, and put it to vote on Thursday. There is another resolution which has been moved by the sixth political group, which is a Eurosceptic party, and it has backed the Indian government on the CAA, but has criticized it for excessive use of force and violence against the protesters, and also has sought an impartial probe into these incidents.
And Shubhajit, these views that the European Parliament has put forward, is this reflective also of what the European Union feels, or particularly what individual countries feel about the CAA?
So the European Union has officially distanced itself from these six resolutions that have been moved by the political groupings in the European Parliament. And they have said that they do not reflect the official position of the European Union. And this has been followed by France also saying that the European Parliament is independent and a sovereign institution and is not connected to the member states. It's independent of the member states. And that has essentially been the situation. Right now, the Indian diplomats are reaching out to all these lawmakers and the countries. The lawmakers and the political groupings are meeting and negotiating a joint text which will possibly be tabled on Wednesday and will be taken up for voting on Thursday.
Over this month, India has constantly reiterated this is an internal matter. The CAA is an internal matter. While a move like this could be, say, bad optics for us, I was wondering what sort of authority do these resolutions have? Does it matter at all to us and what we're going to do?
So the Indian government so far has not reacted officially, but sources have reiterated what you just said, that CAA is a matter entirely internal to India. But they've also expressed the hope that sponsors and supporters of the draft will engage with New Delhi to get a full and accurate assessment of the facts before they proceed further. Now, the Indian government has been facing a challenge in terms of international media coverage, which has been adverse and negative on CAA. And that Indian government believes has shaped the opinion of much of the international community, including the European Union members of parliament. In fact, last month, when Indian Express did this piece after talking to at least 16 foreign ambassadors or diplomats based in Delhi, the overwhelming majority, the sense that emerged from those conversations Indian Express had, was that there was a sense of concern, sense of disquiet on these issues. But they also said that India was fast losing friends at places it usually, traditionally, always had friends who would vote for the country or vote in favor of the relationship.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show, as always, was edited and mixed by our producer, Joshua Thomas. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.